That's game.
Where's that hidden deck of yours?
Are you calling me a cheater?
I ain't calling you a cheater, but I ain't calling you fake.
That's
it.
Anyone else shoots somebody, gonna get a spread of buckshot in their person and everyone around them. Don't stop playing, what are you doing?
In a world comprised with multitudes of rugged hills, rough forest, and backwoods, deep tucked away lies Thurmond in Fayette County, West Virginia. It's used as a mere whitewater rafting put-in and has only 5 residents now. There's just a single-laned road that crosses the New River on a narrow railway bridge into town. In the center lies a junction between the main railroad and the thoroughfare that climbs the hill behind the town where the houses were located. Despite being far off from most of the main cities, the town held a strategic position with the railroad, and with several hundred people in its population, there was an energetic collection of businesses and facilities such as hotels, banks, shops, movie theaters, brothels, a railroad station, and a rail yard that sprang up in the late 1800s after banker, coalman, and Confederate Captain William Dabney Thurmond, also known as W.D. Thurmond, migrated to Fayette County in the 1840s as a young man with his family. In 1864, W.D.'s brother, Philip Thurmond, was in charge of Thurmond's Rangers, an odd group of troops that included W.D. as the captain, until Philip was killed in Putnam County in 1864. His old house burnt by Union troops. Captain William Dabney W.D. Thurmond moved away from Fayette County and remained an unrepentant and unreconstructed rebel after the war and never allowed himself to accept the defeat. W.D. dreamed of a community of his own, and he sought opportunities. He was a resourceful, modest man, competent at many things, known with his military title always coupled with his name. His honorary achievements were respected throughout his life, though not much is said about what kind of acts he accomplished in battle. It is common knowledge that troops were reluctant to fight in the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, as it was taxing and toilsome to deal with the terrain, confusing, treacherous trails where enemies can hide only a few feet before your eyes, and unfriendly mountain people severely loyal to their own kind, unwelcoming, and hostile toward others. In 1873, after the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad pulsed new businesses and families into the backwater and beyond the tall timbers, and as rumors about railroad construction uttered around W.D. Thurmond, a large property owner in the late 1860s, requested W.D.'s services to survey land on the north side of New River in the heart of New River Gorge, and was paid in 73 acres of land, which part of it soon became Thurmond, and gave him the ability to upstart New River coalfield. Railway engineers used the New River as a guideway for their primitive construction out of convenience. Following the path of least resistance, Dunloop Creek and Arbuckle Creek were 2 streams that emptied into the river, and this is where branches of rail lines were made. Arbuckle is originally what W.D. Thurmond had in mind to call his small West Virginia mountain community, but it was rejected when he submitted it for approval by the post office. Offering ferry service and shipping wagon loads of tobacco and produce, W.D. Thurmond had many ways of coming up with resources. This survival ingenuity he had could be the source for his driven motive to bring coal, camps, food, and more supplies into the area. A dozen mines were shipping coal eventually, as Fayette County now was a connector between the eastern and western parts of the U.S., making goods such as fruit, furniture, mining equipment, and clothing commonly move in. According to an account of historical notes, there was more freight handled there from the C&O than any depot between Richmond and Cincinnati, denoting it as a major trading port and industrial center. By 1875, there were 2 general stores, 2 coal company offices, Western Union office, and an Adams Express company in Thurmond. Captain Thurmond built Thurmond Hotel in 1891, but it burned in 1899, so he made it again in 1901, but this time called it Lafayette. It was called Lay Flat by the locals, which had 7 bathrooms, steam heat, and 400 electric lights. Then the Goodman Kincaid building with 2 stores and 2 floors of apartments in 1901. The Mankin Cox building also with 2 stores and 2 floor apartments 1904. Then the National Bank of Thurmond with 3 floors of apartments in 1906. As well as an Armour and Company wholesale meat plant with apartments on the 2nd floor. W.D. Thurmond also built about 30 houses, both 1 and 2 story houses for rent to workers. He had a policy to never sell, and by his death only 3 lots had been sold to commercial interests like Armour. But just before we get to the end of W.D. Thurmond's legacy, we should first look at another man who saw the promising opportunity of the vast New River Gorge as well as Thurmond. However different, the 2 tycoons faced off from opposite sides of the river with opposing dreams of building a community, businesses, and above all, a legacy. We've touched on the coal magnate Thomas G. McKell's Kanawha-Glen Eastern Railroad before in a previous video, but this time we look at how he spent his time in Fayette County. To start, the enterprising and ambitious Thomas G. McKell was given 12,500 acres of Fayette County land by his father-in-law as a wedding gift, soon becoming a coal baron after availing himself the opportunity that was presented to him in his abundant land with vast amounts of timber. So he bought another helping of land, doubling and soon garnering a whopping total of 25,000 acres around W.D. Thurmond's land. The only problem is that McKell's land was disconnected from the railroad by a river. Without access to the main line, he had no way to transform the bountiful property's coal and timber to the fortunes he planned to attain. This proved to be a minor inconvenience to McKell as he negotiated with Chesapeake and Ohio Railway and persuaded M.E. Ingalls to construct a $200,000 C&O branch line along Loop Creek through the McKell's property in 1892. It connected the C&O with the new driven West Virginia town Thurmond. After arranging the bridge connecting it with Thurmond, he looked toward ventures that could bring in more visitors than demonstrated previous. He then made an agreement with C&O to make a mining operation near Dunloop Creek, and he named it Glen Jean in honor of his wife, Glen Jean McKell. It soon became the biggest mining operation in the area, and with Thurmond Bridge he turned coal into cash. Almost overnight, the dreams of Captain W.D. Thurmond and Thomas McKell were manifested, and Thurmond became not just a railroad camp, but a railroad town. As men were brought in the area working for mines and rail lines, other small camps and towns were brought up, so Thurmond became a center for freight passing through as well as passengers. New River Gorge echoed opulence throughout the mountains, and sounds of rail cars, immigrants speaking foreign languages, dynamite blasting in the mines, and soon other endeavors are to be achieved in this bustling municipality. Knowing how much the Thurmond people may come from urban settings and less humble backgrounds such as himself, Thomas McKell knew a way to capture some money from former city folk and wealthy travelers by giving them a familiar entertainment source they may have felt they have left behind in their old cities. He built the Glen Jean Opera House. That was indeed a successful expenditure and investment, garnering enough attention to sprout an even bigger idea to accommodate and comfort the bored mountain dwellers. Where Captain W.D. Thurmond's strict Baptist beliefs and high expectations from fellow associates and townfolk caused him to ban alcohol from his town, the McKell family weren't going to follow along with this sentiment, building up the 100-room Dun Glen Hotel in 1901, which was famous for hosting the 14-year-old long card party recognized as the longest-lasting poker game in Ripley's Believe It or Not, a luxurious 3-story wood building with a double-decker porch on 3 sides. It was the magna opus of McKell's work for sure. The average cost for a one-night stay was $2.50, more than the average coal miner weekly wage. Coal miners struggled to feed themselves and their family, while rich coal operators gambled more coin and banknotes than a miner could ever muster up in this town. Along with the gambling came liquor, prostitution, and entertainment, such as music and dancing. It offered a distraction from the railroad that the Thurmond Hotel simply couldn't allow. The Dun Glen Hotel, dubbed the Waldorf of the Mountains, was a stronghold for sin. The quarter it resided separated itself, becoming known as Ballahack or Ballyhack. It was on the south side near Dun Glen and was Thurmond's red light district. This is what occurred after Captain Thurmond, with his strict moral standards, sought to curtail the depravity and immoral practices at the Dun Glen. So he incorporated his town officially and passed an ordinance outlawing the sale of liquor in 1901. With his efforts, however noble, proved unrewarding. This is where McKell, who is much more experienced in business and would not accept such legal technicality to dismantle his high-performance establishment, he extended the boundaries of Glenjean, which is the town he owned, to include his hotel and named it Ballyhack, Ballahack, or Southside. Stories about WD's The Dreamtown Thurmond were made murky by tales from the south side, reaching beyond the walls, and it wasn't always good things. With no roads to or fro, it became a nice refuge for outlaws on the run. Lawlessness became synonymous with the town of Thurmond, and it was sometimes referred to as Hell, with the river through it. Liquor was poured around the clocks, and the poker game stakes were regularly high as 50,000. And one folk legend about Dun Glen Hotel was the poker game where a gambler lost his coal mine in a bet. As many as 20 trains a day arrived with fresh supplies of women, whiskey, cards, and same-day Cincinnati and Richmond newspapers. Of course, there were probably sinister crimes that occurred from money loss, to which we don't have the specifics, as the truth fades away over time in this locale. One of the only accounts of the violence that most likely occurred being whenever a man recalls his grandfather, who was the barber at the Dun Glen Hotel, went up to see how the job was. He stepped off the train and said he almost stepped onto a dead body of a union organizer. That was probably one awkward job interview. The Dun Glen was open 24/7 from the day it opened henceforth till the day it closed. They had bands, fresh seafood, fine china, political conventions, and parties, with a stereotypical wrap-around deck to fit the bill as a lavish and entertaining 1800s establishment with an active nightlife. The Dun Glen had huge dances and performances in the elegant ballroom that played into the night, sometimes all night, some legends say. New customers were always arriving, and there was no reason to close the operations with how much money and activity was being generated. This is a place where coal barons would meet and even make large transactions, the most expensive one being a $1 million sale of one of the local mines. In today's money, this would be roughly $25 million. One could fulfill all their needs without ever stepping foot out of the hotel. The bottom floor alone had a funeral parlor, grocery and dry goods shop, drugstore, a cobbler, furniture store, and a bank. One could gain a fortune, lose a fortune, and even prepare for death without ever leaving the walls of the Dun Glen. The party never stopped. It was nicknamed Little Monte Carlo for its liquor and gambling. Coal miners were paid on Saturday evening and would blow off steam at Southside. Prostitutes and gamblers would ride the train into Thurmond on Saturdays to meet the vulnerable and tired miners to compete for the miners' hard-earned money, according to Melody Bragg in Windows to the Past. Some speculate this operation was running a scam to take advantage of the exceedingly lucrative coal mines and railroad operations. A number of saloons and brothels were in Southside, such as Bear Wallow and Stack Ale Drive and Dance Hall. Whiskey was sold 10 cents a drink or $1 a quart, day and night, as coal-burning locomotives and coke ovens shot soot and sulfur into the air above the towns. Many laborers died from explosions, cave-ins, and other job-related injuries. Once again, a new series of sounds would breach the area, making gunshots and live music a trademark of Southside or Ballyhack. Along with the others who died in the industrial part of Thurmond, these Southsiders died in gunfights that ensued from liquor and gambling in Ballyhack. There were approximately 26 mines in Thurmond in 1900. At the town's climax, a Freemason temple sprang up as Royal Arch Chapter 24, and it had over 1,000 men in its membership, despite the town population itself having no more than 600 men in its prime, so great in its demand that the trains offered special trains for meeting nights. Thomas McKell passed away in 1904 at the age of 59, leaving the family business for his son William, a well-founded businessman. The McKell Coal and Coke Company prospered, and William leased land to several coal miners, but by 1909 the town declined when Virginian Railway and the Edict of Prohibition was enacted in 1914. Southside was wiped out, and Dun Glen became just a hotel. The power of C&O fell, and so did the people. A serious fire burned parts of the town in 1922, and it was never rebuilt. In 1930, the Dun Glen Hotel was destroyed by arson. Some blame faulty electric wiring, the damages coming to $100,000, roughly $1.5 million in today's currency. The building went up in flames in late evening, and by the time Mount Hope and and Oak Hill fire departments arrived, it had gained too much headway. It was said to burn from 10:30 until well after midnight. William McKell abandoned and died a bachelor a few years soon to come. His brother, who was also unmarried, Thomas, died, and the McKell's lands went to cousins and were sold to other companies. Thurmond National Bank was owned by W.D. Thurmond and closed in 1931. The New River Bank, owned by the McKells, moved to Oak Hill in 1935. Automobile roads were becoming more popular, and with that, the trains lost popularity. People and businesses were moving toward Mount Hope and Oak Hill, and the mining operations were closed. Between 1931 and 1938, the National Bank of Thurmond, the Armor Meat Company, the New River Banking and Trust Company, and the C&P Telephone District offices left the town. C&O locomotives switched to diesel and no longer needed to stop at Thurmond for water and coal. Soon the Thurmond depot closed. After the Great Depression, it was a ghost town by then. Some desperate people moved into the igloo-shaped coke ovens. Rumor has it, William Holland, a coal operator during the time, buried thousands of dollars in gold coins and banknotes in his home about 7 miles from Thurmond. After he died, 5 carpenters dug up $21,000 worth of gold and banknotes from the cellar and greenhouse on his estate. Another finding was a dead man in the river with $80, a watch, and a pistol. Unlike the arid west, the thick vegetation and harsh winters have decomposed most of the cheap wooden structures that remained in the area. Now, visitors in the town are not seeking coal or sinful pleasure, but thanks to John Dragon's Wild Water Unlimited and the creation of New River white water rafting industry, some rebirth in the area has accumulated as a tourist attraction, resulting from the visitors attracted by the rafting put-in and popularity of New River Gorge National Park. You can still visit the town today and see the sights. One of the oddest features of the town is a lack of a road to the commercial district, and the town's buildings are separated from the railroad by a few slight gaps of empty ground, and the town was practically inaccessible except by railroad until 1921. Now there is a road that crosses over the New River and the tracks in the town that goes behind the town. We remember Captain W.D. Thurmond as a classic American pioneer with great hopes and strong will to bring those dreams to life. He may have been building what he thought would be a hard-working religious community, but man's carnal vices did in fact taint his masterpiece, but not before proving to us that you can make something out of seemingly nothing, just as W.D. Thurmond did in the craggy, wild boondocks of West Virginia. In the end, it is because of McKell and not Thurmond that this town is popular, because otherwise it would not be termed the Dodge City of the East. Of course, many believe this town to be haunted and feel an ominous presence loom over them upon entering the area. Some people claim they have heard ghastly soft orchestra music playing in the area to this day. Many reports have been made of glasses clinking, people talking and laughing, ballroom music around the non-physical Dun Glen Hotel. So this may lead many to believe the Dun Glen lives on in the spirit world.